Hi everyone, Tracy DW here. For centuries, human activities in the Middle East has always been an underlying factor that influences events across the world. The birthplace of three major religions and the crossroad between three continents, the Middle East also marks the spot for many early human settlements and cultures, as well as becoming the seat of power for those who conquered vast empires. Today, whether it be a tiny principality or superpower, the socio-economic and geopolitical significance of the Middle East on everyday life can never be underestimated. Events across this region has been a constant cause of conflict and tension, and a focus for scrutiny and speculation throughout the previous 2 centuries. This conflict and tension has ebbed and flowed consistently for decades, like the tide pulling in and then going out. The world has watched this tide with great caution, knowing the causes of its gravitational pull and its potential to overpower our human psyche and rationale, with devastating consequences. Many of you, as my co-listeners and co-learners, will know that the Middle East and its significance in world politics and history sparked my passion for history and is where my learning journey about colonialism began. One of the reasons for conflict and tension is in direct relation to its location. Water and oil are the two most abundant natural resources in the Middle East, which most of the world's population depends upon. In terms of water, the Suez Canal is the junction between Europe, Africa and Asia, which enables trade to flow quickly between the three continents without the need to circumnavigate or travel across vast land masses. In terms of oil, almost every manufacturing and technological process is dependent on oil, and as it will take decades for countries to find greener alternatives, the demand for this mineral remains high. So, what does oil and water have to do with colonialism? Never let it be said that colonialism is just a thing of the past, as events which ebb and flow today have their origins in activities in the past by Europe and the West's desire to control the world's natural resources, wherever they may be. As the tension and conflict intensifies with ongoing attacks on cargo ships in the Red Sea and the death of 3 US soldiers in Jordan due to drone strikes, will the decisions and responses by our political leaders cross the boundaries into territory from which there is no return? Surely the only way is forward. While it is within the interests of the few who would use conflict and violence to further their own cause or to deflect away from their own internal crisis, it will be for the good of the majority to forward march, not into further conflict, but to seize this opportunity as a chance to control the narrative and rewrite history, rather than to repeat it. However, you could go a little deeper back into the past and explore the root of Britain's interest in the Middle East, which was way before 1947. In 1901, a British-Australian businessman, William Knox Darcy, obtained concessions from the Shah of Persia at the time, Muzaffar al-Din, to, among other things, explore and obtain oil as well as natural gas in the Persian region, known as Iran. In 1909, oil was discovered and the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, APOC, was founded by Burma Oil, a British oil company founded in Glasgow in 1886. After acquiring over 90% of APOC, Burma Oil established the world's largest refinery in Abadan in 1913 in southeast Iran as one of the largest oil companies in the world and the largest in the British Empire. Burma Oil would later acquire Castrol Oil and be renamed Burma Castrol in 1966, and in the year 2000 was acquired by the company more commonly known today as BP. 1913 was also significant for Britain as it wanted to manage its transition away from the use of coal into using oil to power its steamships. However, not wanting to rely on Standard Oil from the US or Royal Dutch Shell Oil, known as Shell plc since 2005, a certain Winston Churchill established a contract with the managers of APOC. As with the Suez Canal back in 1875, this enabled Britain to invest, acquiring a controlling interest for the next 2 decades, and in doing so, becoming a de facto power behind APOC. Once again, as Britain gained control of foreign assets, the Iranian government lost control of its own, receiving less than 20% of the net profits, and this caused feelings of misgivings and resentment regarding how APOC was being managed. 10 years later, in 1923, Burma Oil employed Churchill to lobby the UK Parliament, who granted APOC exclusive rights to Persian oil resources. 10 years later, APOC agreed with the then ruler Shah Reza to increase workers' pay and improve Iran's infrastructure. However, this promise of good intentions never materialised, and in 1935, APOC transformed from APOC into AIOC, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. Today's political reality is in complete contrast to that of World War II, when in 1941 Germany's invasion of Russia develops a British-Soviet alliance as part of the Allied forces. A consequence of this was that the Trans-Iranian Railway soon became an attractive route to send supplies quickly and directly into Russia, and both British and Russian forces pressured Iran into using their territory for military logistics. These tactics would later be mirrored through the intelligence activities in Afghanistan during the Cold War period, where the British-Soviet alliance evolved into becoming opponents. However, in 1941, pro-German rallies in Iran led to an Allied forces invasion and the expulsion and exile of Reza Shah to South Africa. The Shah was quickly replaced by his son, Mohammad Reza, who signed an agreement for full military cooperation with Britain and Russia in exchange for Iranian independence and a full withdrawal from the country 6 months after the war's conclusion. By 1951, Iranian nationalism was growing rapidly, and so did pressure to reverse AIOC's concessions in Iran, rejecting Britain's proposal of a supplementary oil agreement. In March of the same year, PM Ali Razmara was assassinated by a minority group who supported demands to nationalise the AIOC, and in his place, Mohammad Mossadegh was appointed. The nationalisation of AIOC and the Abadan crisis saw Britain retaliate with sanctions against Iran. This included the ban of all exports of British goods, the withdrawal of British labour and expertise from Iranian oil fields, and blocking Iran's ability to withdraw its currency from British banks. The refinery was eventually closed, with AIOC pulling out of Iran completely. However, Iran's victory in ejecting British control backfired as the British boycott of Iranian oil eliminated a major source of revenue, exacerbating the problems within the Iranian economy and making the population poorer. Events that followed on from 1952 saw tensions rise between Mossadegh and the Shah, an attempted coup by the CIA, and disputes about how or whether the AIOC should be compensated by the Iranian government and its people. This demand for compensation by oppressors is all too familiar. Although we must never condone acts of violence and aggression that could further escalate the crisis in the Middle East, the current events should encourage a desire to develop a deeper understanding of not just Iran, but the Middle East's wider political context in relation to its colonial narrative. If you liked this podcast, then stay on this listening platform and check out my other podcast episodes related to this one, such as the episode I referred to earlier in part 1, A Moment That Changed My Life, and also Where is Afghanistan? 20 years ago, 2 weeks later, parts 1 and 2. These episodes are all from the first season. And don't forget what I call the heart and soul of the Stories to be Told movement, my stories or poetic narratives, Caribbean Wind, Caribbean Rush, Knights at the Round Table, the Berlin Conference 1884, and Gone with the Wind, Macmillan's Speech for Change. These are all available on the website in both Kindle and paperback formats, and in ebook formats at Apple Books and all other digital platforms. Also, the publications of the latest 4 titles. Now, if you want to find out more, just visit storiestobetold.com and check out the learning platforms for The Journey's End, Giving Back Hong Kong, Bite from the Big Apple, A Story for New York, Hope for Zimbabwe, Arise the Phoenix, and A Story for South Africa. You can visit storiestobetold.com for my latest newsletter and promotional giveaways for this month for one lucky person on my email list. Now, if you'd like to sign up to my email list, just visit the website and sign up where you can opt in and receive your free samples of my first 4 titles, but also it's an opportunity to enter the draw for a monthly giveaway. And finally, remember that you can also send me an audio message on the SpeakPipe link, which is also in the show notes. So don't be a stranger. Feel free to like, follow and share us on social media when you visit the website. Just click on whichever social media link you would like to follow us on. And, as always, it's a pleasure and a privilege to share my learning journey with you in this podcast series, and I encourage you to either begin or continue your own. History is a matter of fact or perspective. I'm Tracy DW, and this is a Stories to be Told podcast. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed. I'm sending you all my prayers and wishing you the best possible start to the new year. Thanks so much for listening again, and I'll see you on the next page.